Our guest of honor for today, Chairman.
Indian industry, and it is our honor and our pleasure to welcome him today to this session, for him to share his experiences with us. Now I'd like to welcome Padmashree Mohan Reddy, Sir Mohan Reddy ji, to please come on the podium to share his experience with all of our young talent present here today.
I'll use the. Sorry. I'll go there. I'll stand. Need a little more support. Well, very good afternoon to all of you. And thank you very much for being here this afternoon. To be chairman of IIT Roorkee for the last 3 years. So when I was coming here, the thought occurred to me, how about talking about my book? And rightly so, we contacted Professor Vinay Sharma. And thereafter, Azam Ali Khan also came to the book launch in early October of 2022. And they all said, we'll also have Professor Rajat Agarwal also joining us. And that's the reason why I'm here. You heard the introduction about me. The young man was generous in telling you all about what I am at this point of time. But I always ask this question to myself, saying that who am I? I actually asked this question to being an entrepreneur. And honestly, I like that title for myself. I am an entrepreneur. So who is an entrepreneur? Can anybody wants to take a guess at it or answer my question? Who is an entrepreneur? One who solves the problem in a new way. And what else? One who solves. Yeah, it makes business out of it. What else? With limited resources, he uses them very well. What more? Who bears the risks? Thank you. That's, I think, roughly between 4 of you have summed it up. So you have a problem, you find a solution, you make it into a business, make it a business proposition, take a lot of risks. That's what the 4 of you put together said right now. That's what an entrepreneur is. So why did I become an entrepreneur is a little more than the definition that you gave. Without any denying that entrepreneurs have business motive. not to kill your curiosity, but that is the one which several people tell me make people listen to me, is look at the business motive I had. I wanted to provide engineering services as an outsourcing service from India to the global markets. That's how, whether it's 21 countries or 23 countries we now have presence, what do we do is that we provide engineering as service to customers all around. Where did I start? I started with 20 lakhs of my money. That was my seed investment in the company. The business motives were very clear. We certainly wanted to make a business proposition out of it. The 20 lakhs of seed money today is valued at 10,000 crores, give or take. It's a publicly traded company. So depends on the stock market, the weather where it goes, it probably would be 9,000 or 12,000, somewhere around that number. So I unhesitantly keep telling people, entrepreneur has business motives. Money is important. So don't be ashamed of telling people that I made money out of my business. That's wrong. What's wrong? If you rightly made that money, you didn't cheat people. You did not do profiteering. You profited from the business. But I did a little more than that because I saw a lot more in entrepreneurship. I started this company with 4 engineers. I employ now 18,000 engineers across the world. This is a lot more than what we defined as entrepreneurship. We created employment which is so much needed in this country in a way which probably always delighted us. We certainly, what we did further is some of you, except for 2 of my friends who are sitting in the front, Professor Pant and Professor Chaturvedi, or probably, I need to get your name, sorry, I missed your name, your head of department is all sitting here, but the rest of the people, leave the first 2 rows, I guess. None of you were born in 1990 or 1991. So you know what the situation in India was at that point of time? It was very similar to what's happening in Sri Lanka, precisely what it was. So what's happening in Sri Lanka right now? Very good, thank you. Balance of payment crisis that they have. Precisely, India had the balance of payment crisis. And what was the situation was we are in such a brink of disaster that very sheepishly, secretly, the then Indian government was shipping out gold to Bank of London to pay for the debt. That was the most disgraceful thing that could ever happen to a nation. What is it today? We have about $575 billion worth of foreign exchange reserves with us. A number of people contributed to it, but the industry also contributed. The person the young man who introduced said some number, but we did about $6 billion worth of foreign exchange earnings in the last 30 years. So that is not a definition of an entrepreneur, but it's much beyond it. A third one that I think I really liked about it is that we participated quite a bit in social activity. We spend 2% of our revenues at this point of time in our corporate social responsibility. We have about 28 schools under our management. We touch the hearts of 10,000 children every year. But here is I can go on and on, but here is what I keep saying. I measure myself on the outcomes, not on the effort that I put in. The effort could be stupendous. What was the outcome? When we adopted these 28 schools, the girl child population in these schools was less than 15%. What is it today? The girl child population is 54%. I keep saying no nation, no family, no society, no association can ever prosper without equal participation of women along with men. That's entrepreneurship too. So I love my job as an entrepreneur because it's just not making business proposition out of it, but equally important is I participated in nation building. I wrote this book. Which was launched in October of this year. It's just about less than 2 months. And I wrote this book primarily to say I want to inspire people to become entrepreneurs like me. And one of the stories that runs very early in early chapters of the book is all about how average individual I was. Several people came back to me and said, Mohan, you got very personal with the story, but there was a reason why I got so personal. And that was in class 7, my marks in maths were so poor, my mother threatened me that she will send me to a village to join my grandfather to do farming. I don't demean farming as such, but you know how hard it is. You wake up, I've been in the village too, so therefore I know how harsh it is on people. You don't have this air conditioning comfort, you don't have these cushioned chairs, I don't have a chauffeur-driven car. You walk all the way up and down in the fields and so on and so forth. Scary thought. She also said one other thing, and that was that, look, you have a sister who's elder to you. It's a year elder to me she is, and she became a medical doctor. She could come first in class. What's wrong with you? So therefore, the normal impressions are boys are superior to girls. Not true. Girls are superior to boys. And what did we learn from that is that if she can do it, why not me? And the point I'd like to make is when an average individual like me from there started thinking about how do I become better? And I discovered one simple thing, and every one of you can discover that. And that is persist with this thought that I need to excel. Nobody needs to tell you this. Just one thing, anything that you do, not necessarily go to class and score the best marks for yourself. Go to the field and you have to be the guy who scores the maximum goals for yourself. You take the bat, you have to score the maximum runs. I'm not saying you compare yourself with others. You compare yourself with yourself. And I constantly say, I better myself. So therefore, I think, what I discovered thereafter was this: if we start looking at myself and start saying I have to excel, I slowly but steadily improved myself. By the time I graduated, I was a gold medalist in engineering. And thereafter, I built my career everywhere in life. So I thought I'll share those stories with you. At a time when we think that entrepreneurship is extremely critical for this nation. Why do I think so? First and foremost, I'm sure many of you read and understand this word called demographic dividend. India right now enjoys the benefit of demographic dividend. For those of you who would not have probably read, it's if the age group of the population of a nation is more than 51% in the age group of 15 to 65 years, that nation is enjoying demographic dividend. And during this period of demographic dividend, which in simple terms it means there are more number of people working as opposed to number of people who are dependent on you. The 15 years less are children, the 65 and above are considered to be elderly people. So therefore, the dependence comes down, and what we have seen as a result of this is enormous amount of benefit to the nation. Economic development of the nations have been phenomenal. Good examples are South Korea, Japan, and China still enjoys it. I believe they probably will move out of the window in about under 5 years or 6 years from now. But India has another 20 years ahead of us to say that we'll continue to enjoy this particular benefit. But with the benefit comes a challenge. Because of this demographic dividend or youngsters coming into the working population, if fewer going out, actually we go to the level of, we'll have 65% of people in this 15 to 65% bracket. The challenge that comes out is that Every month, there are a million people seeking jobs in India. Every year, approximately 10 million people are seeking jobs. Just fast forward for 10 years, there are 100 million jobs that are to be created. There's a fairly large evidence in the world which says that existing companies only create 40% of jobs. 60% of jobs get created by new companies. And new companies are nothing but startups created by entrepreneurs. So in a nation like India, there is enormous amount of need for entrepreneurship. That's one reason why I wanted to get this message across to inspire people to become entrepreneurs. And the second reason I believe is that technology today is an enabler for the best enabler for startups. Technology has not been so good as what we see today. A very classic example of mine is that I don't think I'm carrying my smartphone with me, it's on the table there. But a smartphone today has 18 distinctive devices built into it. 20 years back, when most of you were not born, we carried 18 of them. If probably what you have packed in a smartphone today meant that I at least needed a trawler to go along with me if I had all those devices. It had a computer, it has a computer, sorry. It has a computer, it has a television, it has a calculator, it has a GPS, it has a thermometer. You can name them. You can go on thermometers beyond the 18, but anyway, you can get thermometer also inside. So the way in which the technology is progressing makes us believe that timing is right. Several people believe that Gordon Moore was wrong. I'm sure you heard about Moore's law. Yes? Very good, thank you. So several people actually by 2000, they said Gordon Moore could have been wrong. Let's go back and reassess what exactly transpired with Moore's law. And they all were very surprised that Gordon Moore was wrong. It was not taking 18 months for packing more amount of silicon onto a chip to make sure the computers became faster, twice over, become half the size and half the price in 18 months. It was taking less than 18 months for all these three things to happen. And our belief is it'll continue at the same pace, if not a faster pace. So the technology today is so good that it creates more amount of opportunities. You can leapfrog yourself. I don't think really in India you saw more amount of 4G technologies rolled out. But the good news, therefore, is that you straight away leapfrog yourself into 5G technologies. There are a number of devices, technologies, people said, we didn't have them. But the good news is we leapfrogged ourselves to ensure that we were current in many other areas. So the second reason I believe that you should become entrepreneurs is because you have the advantage of technology being at its best, and your ability to use technology is the one which will make you distinctively different from others. My third reason I believe that I like to encourage you is that globalization is changing at this point of time. Globalization is morphing into more amount of inward-looking globalization. As rightly the Honorable Prime Minister talks about, Make in India means make for India and make for the world. And there is a good reason why it happened that way. There were threats started off in some form or other with Brexit. They said we didn't get benefited by trying to share our borders with everybody else in European Union. That's what UK thought. And thereafter, we had this maverick of a president called Trump who cancelled many FTAs. And then the big cyclone came, tsunami came in terms of COVID-19. All supply chains got disrupted. Many countries around the world started saying, oh my God, our dependence on others is so high. And today, it's not any better with the Ukraine-Russian war that's going on. There is so much amount of, we don't experience it. because I think we had vision in terms of becoming self-sufficient in many ways, not necessarily only in the last 8 years. For instance, we are self-sufficient as a nation for food grains. But enormity of suffering can't be believed in what's happening in Africa right now because they depended so intensely on Ukraine for wheat production. So with the sort of a globalization which is becoming a little more inward, and the Indian government trying to promote more amount of Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is basically to say we need to be self-reliant as opposed to depend on somebody else. The opportunities for entrepreneurs are becoming plenty. For people like me, it was nightmarish to do business in India because of still the bureaucratic hurdles that were there. Even if you look at it in the last 3 years, 3 years back, in terms of ease of doing business, we were rated as 81st country in a list of 128 countries. Only in the last 3 years, again, we are now inched towards a number called 41. So 3 reasons I want you to think about entrepreneurship. The first is imminent need. You become again a part of nation building. The second one is that technology is at its best. And the third reason is the opportunities are plenty, all, just not in India, all around the world. Why did I write this book? I'll start with the third comment of mine, is that I started as an entrepreneur pretty late in life. If you read the book, you'll know where exactly I started. I started when I turned 40. So people keep asking me, did you get scared that you're turning 40? I said, no, I thought I still had. I always looked at glass being half empty, or half full rather, half full, in a positive way that, look, I did a lot of things. In this half my life, I assume that at least that will be the half. I certainly has done several things. I gained a lot of rich experience and then started to be an entrepreneur. But I'm also one of those guys who some people find it very difficult to understand. I understand myself fairly well. Is that I also decided to give up my role as a CEO and then as a chairman of the company too. Very progressively I did. Simple reason. The reason for it, and I keep sharing this with number of family businesses and founders, is that founders are not immortal. We are all human beings. Sooner than many of you, I'll disappear. That's certain, given where I'm in my age. But then if the founder disappears, the company should not disappear along with them. Then the purpose of life is lost. So you have to have a good succession in place. So I put a succession in place when I was turning 65. Around that, I started off with 60. Precisely 8 years back, I gave up the role of being the CEO of the company. But an interesting thing happened around the time when I was thinking about succession. I do mention this in my book. I met this gentleman called Ravi Bhuthalingam, who was the chairman of actually Oberoi Group of Hotels. He left that, and then he was also Wazir Sultan. He was the chairman. Wazir Sultan Tobacco Company was the chairman. Outstanding HR specialist. He came to help my son, who was my successor, in mentoring him. So one day he came in the evening to me and said, Mohan, I need to have a heart-to-heart chat with you. I won't describe all that happened, but one question he said was, what are you planning to do now in life? So I had a blank face. He said, Mohan, one thing very, very important for you, if you truly believe in succession, is that you need to find some other role for yourself. And that's where I discovered that I had a passion in education. Education led me to innovation. Innovation led me to entrepreneurship and startups. So when we started doing this education and startups, I started meeting a lot of startups around the world. I actually, as we speak right now, I have got about 25 companies where I'm invested. I serve on the board of 4 of the startups. But when we started meeting people, the startup youngsters, we started finding how much more amount of inputs that they needed. And as we went around and said, no, this will not work. We can meet some people, guide them, mentor them, but it required a lot more attention, a lot more audience to catch up. And that's when I embarked on this journey of writing the book 3 years back. And that's the reason why I said I'll put all that effort to reach out this story with several more people, to inspire them, to learn what is all about entrepreneurship. Somewhere in the book, I talk about roller coaster ride. That's what is entrepreneurship all about. What is roller coaster ride? It goes up and down. And so it's very risky, right? Lots of people think it's risky. Some people say it's very thrilling. But at the end of it, you go back and ask people that they say I really enjoyed it. There's pride and pleasure that comes out of a roller coaster ride. And I keep saying that's a lot more immense in case of entrepreneurship, because for a roller coaster ride, you pay for it. Whereas I don't pay for the entrepreneurial journey, but I go through the same ups and downs. It's a little more riskier than a roller coaster ride, because roller coaster rides have guardrails for you. Entrepreneurship doesn't. But the end of it, the pride and the pleasure that you get is worth it. So those are the few remarks I wanted to make, and I'll now go back and sit there and I'll share some more thoughts of mine after hearing your questions. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your wise words. And we are certain that your journey must have swayed the young talent sitting here and inspired them to achieve their true potential. Now we would like to request our esteemed panelist, Padmashree BVR Mohan Reddy ji, Dr. Vinay Sharma, Dr. Rajat Agarwal, and Mr. Azam Ali sir to please initiate the panel discussion.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
It's a wonderful book actually, and I got a short time to read it, but when I started reading that on 20th, I could not stop for a while. So definitely a wonderful book. Basically, I went through almost 9 chapters at a stretch. So and then it's engrossing.
Thank you.
I feel honored to be part of this discussion and feel humbled as well. So I could make out 3-4 keywords which I would highlight, and then I have 1 or 2 questions as well. And then you may suggest that if I'm on the right track, because I could find heuristics finding a very strong place in your initial remarks in the book, and then technology, innovation, and society. So I presume that if somehow students and this age group tries to follow a combination of these words, probably they would initiate a journey around these words to be an entrepreneur. So and then there's one quick element which I would like to add to that is that there are a few lines which you have written, and I would definitely be using those as quotes in due course of time. So one I noted on page 15, and that there you have said, perceive opportunities in places where there appear to be none. And there comes a question which is slightly broader, but I just want to understand that how to develop an insight on perceiving those opportunities, sir.
Sure. Good question, Mr. Sharma. Opportunities don't come and present themselves in front of you. You we persist in trying to explore where those opportunities lie. So it's not one day's journey to say that I was looking around for customers. Any possible thread that was there, we said we are there to present ourselves in front. So the persistence, at times you fail, you don't find those customers, you get very frustrated. But you don't lose heart. You go back with rejuvenated energy next morning to persist with this idea saying that I'll find customers. And there could be strange circumstances in which you'll find them. Actually, there's this interesting story which is documented in the book. is sometime in 2000 February, late afternoon, I got a call from a friend of mine saying that, there is this company called Pratt& Whitney. A large team of people are coming to Hyderabad. They're trying to find a partner for outsourcing their engineering services. I actually had a plan to go to Mumbai next morning. I was somewhat reluctant, saying that, it'll be a late evening with these people. And more importantly, a cardinal principle of mine is I would never go for a dinner without an invite. So I expressed this to the friend of mine, and he said, no, don't worry about that, Mohan. These were days when we did not even have emails. He said, you'll get a fax invitation. And how many of you know what a fax is? Some people know what a fax is. Thank you. So I got a fax invite. I went there, and I found this group of, there used to be one flight coming in from Delhi to Hyderabad. They were flying in. They came late, waited. But then I keep saying the first thing is that as salespeople who are very focused to say, I need to make things happen. In the 15 people, you can't be finding next 1 hour. You can't be having conversation with everybody. So one of the things I think finally when the editing went on, we removed it, that one sentence of mine. You also need to develop that art of distinguishing between decision makers and coffee makers. All 15 people were not decision makers. There are only 1 or 2 of them. I found the right guy, Ed Crow, Senior VP in charge of engineering. And we made the conversation with him. He said, what was I drinking? I'd be very transparent. I was drinking a glass of wine. So this was the good old days of 2000, when you didn't have good wines of India. There used to be a wine called the Golconda Ruby wine, which is a Hyderabad product. And some number of people used to joke about me that Mohan drinks chemical. That's what it was. It was not really wine, but it's a chemical that I used to drink. But it is an acquired taste, actually. It's not bad wine. It's no more there, all right. So I introduced this to Ed Crow, and we had a conversation of engineering thereafter for 1.5 hours. And Ed Crow at the end of it said, Mohan, what are you doing in the morning? I said, I was going to Mumbai. He said, if I came to your office, will you stay back? I said, certainly yes. So he said, I'm coming to your office. He came to the office. Instead of spending an hour with us, all the 15 people, a truckload of people it was, busload of people. They came and spent time. At the end of the time, when he got into the car, he asked me this question, when are you coming to Hartford? That's where Pratt & Whitney is headquartered. Well, that's all now history. But the point is that you persist, you look for opportunities everywhere. And what did this opportunity translate itself into? We have 1,000 engineers into aerospace. And this is a $100 million account. A single customer, we built a $100 million account. So therefore, what happens is that entrepreneurs all the time are on the lookout. That we say, therefore, you might say, Mr. Reddy, now has the company lost its entrepreneur? No. They want this mindset. One of the things that I work so hard at, and I think I'm successful to a very great extent, starting off with my CEO, is that they all have to develop this mindset called founder's mindset. The ability to be very agile, the ability to be ambitious, the ability to cut all the hierarchy and become thin in terms of leadership. These are some of the things that we do.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
In fact, when you were speaking, I was thinking that I'm in a class of business environment where the entire chapter of political environment to run a business was explained in such a beautiful way. I went through your book also, and I found that how the entire IT landscape of India, that industry was developed in our country. One thing which I will like to understand from you, particularly in the context of Cyient, that at the time, TCS, Patni Computers, and very few other IT companies, which were mainly in the service sector, and you started to get into a product-based company. So what was that idea that instead of being a service-based company, we should develop our products? Because generally, in India, we don't see many companies coming into that domain, and we remain more service focused.
Thank you, Professor Rajat, but I think there's some small miscommunication. Honestly, a bulk of our business is also services business.
Okay.
So we are different from the TCSs and the Wipros and the Infosys of the world because our core competence comes from engineering as a service. Whereas for them, IT as a service is what their core competence is. For us, engineering is the core competence. So well, you're right in some ways. We help customers develop products. Example being, a good example is there is I'm sure most of you fly on the Indigo flights. There's an aircraft called Airbus 320. It has an aircraft engine called GTF, Gear for Turbofan engine from Pratt& Whitney. So if you look at that GTF engine, which of course did not get good press in the initial stages, but we did not have a role to play in that part of it. But overall, it's a breakthrough in terms of technology. And what is the breakthrough that was there is that people never thought about having a gearbox inside an aircraft engine. Because they said, gearbox, how will you probably manage it? So many gears that will run within one another and so on and so forth. But finally, it became important and imperative because of three reasons. They wanted to reduce the noise. They wanted to improve the fuel efficiency. They wanted to reduce the carbon footprint. So that product, if you look at it as an aircraft engine, 25% of effort is from our side, from our company. And 20% of IP is jointly held between us and Pratt & Whitney. IP production was done by us. The intellectual property belonged to both of us. So the sum total is we wanted to get into an area which is different from others. So the message I have for my friends who want to become entrepreneurs is that please look for a distinctively different idea. In the lighter vein, I can tell you that I don't invest in a company if I heard that story only from somebody. Second time I hear that, I keep saying, no, this is not the company. I've already evaluated them. I'm done now. I've either gone forward or I won't move forward with it. So therefore, the uniqueness in terms of starting your business is extremely important. You have to have, as I continuously emphasize, a distinctively different proposition. That's how we said we'll go into engineering as opposed to pure play IT services, which other people do.
Thank you. First of all, it is always a treat to be in conversation with an entrepreneur. You get to know so new things. Just my additive to when you spoke about facts. So it's a small story that when I approached one of the person in the government in the state, they said if you want to reach out to DMs and SPs, you should fax them because then they will say that this is something serious, and you have to write KA, kind attention. So I bought a fax in my office, but fortunately, just a 6 month or year after, they said, no, we have created some emails. And so now they actually revert to the emails.
Sure.
But coming to the question, India has proved its prowess for the last 35 years or so in the software industry. And now it's time that if we want to bring our nation into a new orbit, we need to put stress upon hardware, that is the tangible products. Fortunately, at IIT Roorkee, we are emphasizing a lot upon product-based companies. The challenge here is that the typical VC, they are still seeing funding hardware-based ideas as some kind of a not so attractive proposition, majorly because it is not very easy to show scale. What is your suggestion? How should such companies be position themselves to attract funding? Industry is an option, but how then to develop this academia, industry, startup nexus, which is a productive one?
Sure. Good question, Nazam. I think things are changing for sure. Human beings, all of us have one weakness. We're very impatient people. We are all have short fuse. I think it's very clear. So venture capitalist also, what does he or she thinks is I've got to make money tomorrow. So this hardware business takes time. So therefore, that's why it didn't require that attention. Whereas software business is like this. The product idea, you code the product, you're going into the go-to-market, thereafter the revenues are coming in. You're talking about now ARR, cash guzzling with you. But as I said, life is changing. People think, the software business is good. But software business is also running into another hyper loop of just valuations. That's how that game was being played. Nobody was making money. If you look at even the largest and the best companies, why does even Elon Musk think about right now Facebook, Twitter, uh, firing so many people? He wants to make the company profitable. Right now, the whole uh, agenda for people, the flavor of the season is not any longer profitable, any longer valuation, but it is profitability. So unless you get into products like what you're saying in hardware, it won't be profitable. That's number one. Number two is, I think we've also seen enormous amount of disruption that has happened in hardware industry to ensure that there are a lot more new products have come by. I'm trying to recall, but I wouldn't spend time on recalling where it came from. But somebody was telling me about literally a postage stamp size of device which is stuck on a cricket bat with the same size, same thickness. And it has all the data of where the ball came and hit on the bat, which direction did the batsman swing, how far did it go. All of it is now being collated on the cloud. It doesn't have, I believe, he was still saying that he's trying to put edge computing thereafter. That hasn't happened, I believe. So therefore, that was not possible. That's hardware, right? There's no denying there's software that will come by. So what we think is the software has evolved very well, but the hardware has to support it. The disruptions have happened in hardware too, in terms of a number of technologies coming in. If you look at the sensors, for example, all the 5 sensors are at the best. They could certainly will become better because, as I said, Moore's law, people say, will continue for next 20 years. So whether it's the touch, the vision, the smell, the sound, the taste, and people ask me this question saying that, Mohan, where do you see a sensor being used for taste? And I keep saying wine testing. So you'll find that my machine will detect better wine than my tongue does. So therefore, I can test it out first before I decide which is the best brand that I buy. So what we are seeing is the hardware is becoming cheaper, and as a result of it, more and more devices will come by. So I think the timing is perfect right now to say hardware business will go hardware coupled with the software. You look at you look at your smartphone itself. I talked about 18 devices. Look at patient monitoring systems, and or for that matter, even glucometer. At one point in time, you had to prick yourself to have a drop of blood before sugar levels were determined. Now technology is so the color of the blood is now telling you whether how much sugar level you have. It don't require any invasive processes. These are all hardware driven. So I think hardware will ought to take off, Azam.
I have one more question from one of the pages, that is page 20, sir. And then that is, again, a wider one. You have said that zeal to excel made a difference in the outcome of every task leading to success. And then I always try to emphasize similar kinds of things in classes, but not with success actually. So just want to request you to highlight on where to find that zeal and how to pursue that actually.
It's within you, Mr. Sharma. I said this. Zeal to succeed is not somebody else's job. It is your job. You say, I'll be the best, I'll be the best. Nothing short of that. You just develop that sense into yourself. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just your attitude which says, whatever I do is the best. I'm not trying to say I'll steal something from somebody and become richer. I'm trying to say I'll excel myself by doing it better and better. We found something interesting, all right. At times when you want to put this excellence to come into play, you could also put a little bit of competition. We were very brave in terms of actually measuring the output of every of our design engineers. And not only we were measuring them, but we were also displaying them. Every Monday morning on the display board, they used to see, everybody's name saying that what's the output, as was decided by all of us. In a group sitting, we decided this is weekly basis. And there used to be a chart. And what I found the psychology of people is nobody wanted their name to be the bottom of the chart. So somebody moves up. So somebody else comes down. So there's moving up. But you look at what happened to the company is that the average was also moving up, right? So therefore, excellence is something that you can bring it. What would everybody doing? They would excel themselves. For excellence, you don't need to put extra hard work. I'm saying do a 100-meter dash and you have to do it in 9.2 seconds. That's extra effort, a lot of practice, physical labor. This doesn't require. All of you are very smart people. So smart people, average guy like me, I'm sitting in front of you and giving this big bhashan at this point of time. You are all extraordinary people already. You can become bigger people than what I am.
Sir, I also have a follow-up question. Since you graduated and you started working in different organizations, and for around 18 years, you kept working in different organizations. And then at the age of 40, you started your entrepreneurial journey. Here we have all young graduates sitting in front of us. So what's the message? So they can start their entrepreneurial journey immediately they graduate, or they can also, because I feel that you acquired a lot of rich experience while working in different type of roles. So that experience must have helped you in your entrepreneurial journey. So what kind of advice you can give to these young chaps?
Sure. Thank you, Professor Agarwal, for asking that question. I think I also say in the book somewhere down, saying that I belong to a generation where experience was extremely important, because at that point of time, forming into teams, not many people came together. And also, what were the opportunities that were there at that point of time were brick and mortar opportunities. In the when I graduated in 1973, it was brick and mortar opportunities that were there. Whereas now you don't need that. There was a lot of money that is required. You require experience because in a brick and mortar industry, experience becomes important. The day I started as a management trainee, I used to run a shop of 300 engineers. Sorry, 300 workers, not engineers. Sorry, I'll take that back. So ability to run operations, etc. Do you require that in a small software shop right now? No. 10 people can produce $1 billion worth of software. So times have changed. That's number one. So you don't require that experience any longer. But the second one is, given the type of networking that's happening at this point of time, you can form teams much faster. Like-minded people are coming together much faster than we saw it any time in the past. So therefore, if you are a good technologist, you get a business partner. You get a partner who probably is very good in sales and marketing. That formation, because whether we say there's several things negative about social media, but our ability to form those networks are making this possible. So I would strongly urge people, don't wait till I waited for 18 years to become an entrepreneur. But I think the key thing is, I've got to caution all of you that don't become entrepreneur because somebody is telling you to become an entrepreneur. That should come within you. That several people come back and ask me saying that, Mr. Reddy, I want to become an entrepreneur, give me one idea. Trust me, my answer to them is, this is sure short way of failing. You want an idea from somebody, you're done. You go and research yourself. Your heart has to be there. Your passion has to be there. You got to develop it yourself. That's what people have to do. And if they want to become entrepreneurs, they can always form teams. And we've seen amazing teams coming out. I work with very closely, not to make competition, a team with IIT Kanpur youngsters, three graduates who do in water management. To the point Azam made, it's hardware and software, Azam. They actually manufacture the meters. But then it's all technology which is current. You can go and Google around, it's called Christum Technologies, water management. Successful company, growing, I think they'll explode. That's what will happen. So therefore, my submission to my young friends is, please think about becoming an entrepreneur if you have that urge in you, that passion in you. If you don't want to become an entrepreneur, I'm not saying professional life is bad, but become an entrepreneur thereafter. Entrepreneurship is all about becoming accountable to yourself, like an entrepreneur does. I write a story in my book all about my first role that I had. how I worked in that role as if I owned the company. What's wrong in that? Salary will anyway come. If you contribute much better than what is expected out of you, obviously the recognition will come. So entrepreneurship or not, think like a founder of a company. That's what I think the messaging that comes out of the book too.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
One last question which I have for you, and this is something which we have seen over here in the campus. One of the most important and critical things which stops mainly students to get into entrepreneurship is that fear of failure. And the chance of failure is actually quite high. That is a fact of the matter. We are now almost assessing 500 ideas every year. And you said that you also have a portfolio of startup. What are those traits which you look into an individual or a founder, which basically make you, okay, now I'm going to bet onto this idea, or this is a trait, it's a winning trait, or something like that?
So before that, I think Azam, you talked about this fear of failure. That's again an extremely common trait in every one of us. As human beings, it's a characteristic that we have. But I ask this question: suppose you don't want to take the chance, and you don't want to do it. What's the final outcome of it? Status quo remains. You are where you are. There's no risk at all, but there's no reward either that's going to come by. So therefore, why not take the risk in terms of trying out something new? And what we have also seen is when you even fail, I keep talking about this, saying that there is fairly large amount of learning from failures too. We continue to actually we spend about 1.5% to 2% purely on innovation ideas within the company. 1.5% of our revenues. There used to be a customer innovation center which has been rechristened with some other name, all right, at this point of time. So their number of ideas failed. But the bottom line to us is that they would fail, but there's a lot of learnings that we have from them. So what I would tell my young friends is, don't worry about failure. Don't worry about what will somebody think about me. I will do what I like to do. I'll be brave enough to do it. I'll try it out. If I fail it, I have learnings associated with it. That's the message.
As much as we would like to continue this questionnaire session, I would now like to open up the floor to any questions from the audience. Yes. Can we have the mic at the back, please?
Hello. Yes, sir. My name is Abhishek, sir. It was a great session, sir. Thank you for it on the first half. Sir, my question is to all the young people out here, we all have dreams, sir. But, sir, going forward, how do you think we can be consistent and at the same time follow our dreams and achieve it at the same time, like the way you did? What would be your suggestion to all the young minds out here?
See, you got to discover to yourself what do you want to be in life. I keep asking this question, purpose of life. I keep asking this question, why am I here? And there's it's a miss all right in the book, but I keep talking about this very famous poem from an author called Linda Ellis. It's called The Dash. So when you appear in this world and disappear thereafter, finally what is left behind is a tombstone. The tombstone has a name, 2 dates associated, and then there's a dash in between. None of those 3 things are under your control. Your name, your date of birth, or date of disappearance. What is in your control is what you contribute. That's the dash. So once you start determining, and the purpose of life could be multifold. You could become a good teacher. That's a very noble profession, if you like that profession. You can become a politician too. Not necessarily I'm referring to the current generation of politicians, but you can think about some good politicians to do social service. You can become a civil servant. You can be a social activist. So therefore, I think what has to come first in you is to discover, to say, what do I want to become in life? Once you know that, you start working towards that goal. This is what I want. I want to become an entrepreneur. It took me a while to become that. But once I embarked on the journey, I said I'll excel myself day in and day out. That's how you get to a level of perfection. Even today, I'm 72 years old. I still think that there's a lot more I can do to better myself. That attitude is the one. You continuously do that. You have a goal and continue to say, I'll get better, better, better. You'll get better for sure. There's nothing for end. Thank you.
Do we have a next question from the audience? Yes.
Sir, my name is Navneet. First of all, thank you for such an inspiring session. My question is how, according to you, can we ensure sustained job creation?
Well, sustained job creation in an enterprise or a nation, are you talking about, Nambi? Or a country or for a company? Sorry?
Country, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think I alluded to it, Nambi. The key thing is that today entrepreneurship is the only way of job creation in this country. Because only 40% of jobs in any country for that matter, the Western world, this is research done, I have hard facts with me, are created by companies which are in existence. Other 60% get created by new companies. These are small, medium, they grow into the bigger companies thereafter. That's what they will do. So I think the way in which job creation can happen only is through entrepreneurship, but an environment has to be created for that entrepreneurship. I think a number of things. We talked also about the government's thrust right now for Atmanirbhar Bharat, which means that they're promoting more amount of Indian production. We think there'll be a market shift in the coming, say, 2 to 3 years in defense products being brought from India. We're seeing that slowly, but there'll be a market shift as products will get to mature themselves. They're improving on doing the ease of business at this point of time. We also believe that in spite of the fact that I'm in IIT Roorkee and I'm sitting in front of all these outstanding engineers, management students, etc., there's a very serious shortage in terms of talent. So all these are things which the government has to do. But what an entrepreneur has to do is to create that market everywhere in the world and make sure that we will be successful. In the process of becoming successful, you create the jobs. So that's the only way we can do the job creation. But if you say, ask me for a company, will you job creation? No. I'm very clear in my mind. My objective in life is not to create jobs. You create a business, jobs would automatically follow you. And therefore, I think, don't say that I want to become an entrepreneur to do job creation. No. I want to become an entrepreneur with a business idea. I will create a business. But a consequence of that is number of other things I talked about.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much to our audience for being such an interesting audience. And now I'd like to invite Professor Rushta Lenka, Head of Department of Management Studies, to extend the vote of thanks.
Thank you. So before Professor Lanka says the vote of thanks, one word, if you pardon me, is that please read my book. I would strongly urge all of you to read the book. It is certainly we got a fairly large amount of feedback so far. To give a flavor, there are about 5,000 books which have already gone out. And as a result of it, it's buzzed in the social media, what we hear about. It certainly is going to be useful to you. But more importantly, thereafter, please get to the social media and post your comments. That's going to be invaluable for people like me to think about what I did so far. Thank you.
Yeah. On behalf of the Department of Management Studies, IIT Roorkee, I extend sincere thanks to Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy, Chairman, Board of Governors, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee. This exclusive chat show based on autobiography of Padmashree Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy reflects on his journey of an indomitable, courageous entrepreneur who has created a name of technology-led innovation space, has enthralled lives of millions of young of budding entrepreneurs. The life experiences, events, special moments shared in his book, Engineered in India, is a roller coaster ride of his journey as a founder of multinational company, Cyient. These learnings will help the students of IIT Roorkee gather courage to think of a sustainable career and where they can continue to develop a new genre of young entrepreneurs. This would be a collective effort towards a self-reliant India. Leadership, courage, determination, honesty, simplicity, ethics, concern for society are rare skills which need to be imbibed and which need to be incorporated in the academic curriculum, along with the digital skills to develop best technical talents into confident entrepreneurs. Nevertheless, digital technology is an advantage, but a value-based education will help movement towards a stronger nation. India can leap forward to a fastest growing economy in the world if giant strides are taken in areas of financial inclusion, infrastructure, tourism, healthcare, hospitality, in developing new and existing business. This event is a memorable knowledge sharing session for the young talents to shape their novice ideas into a new age enterprise. With these words, I would like to thank Dr. BVR Mohan Reddy, Professor Vinay Sharma, Professor Rajat Agrawal, Mr. Azam Khan for this exclusive chat show. I sincerely thank esteemed Director Professor A.K. Pant, former Director Professor Ajit Chaturvedi, Professor Arun Kumar, distinguished dignitaries, faculty colleagues, students and staff for making this event very successful. Thank you, all of you.